the initial video we saw was of a man being kicked in the head and stamped on, and then there's another case which involves pepper spray on a separate man, apparently the same officer, according to the IOPC.
Now in Manchester, hundreds of protesters last night blocked tram lines and roads in the city centre as anger continues over the incident at the city's airport. Well, video emerged on Wednesday which showed a man being kicked in the head and stamped on by a Greater Manchester police officer. Let's speak now to Joseph Timan, who's a reporter at the Manchester Evening News. Morning, Joseph.
Morning.
So just bring us the very latest on this investigation.
So the latest news we got last night was that the IOPC referred a second case within the same incident at the airport. It involves the same officer, but another man at the airport. So the initial video we saw was of a man being kicked in the head and stamped on, and then there's another case which involves pepper spray on a separate man, apparently the same officer, according to the IOPC.
And the man's solicitor, the man who was on the ground, he's been speaking and talking about his condition.
Yeah, that's right. So he did a press conference yesterday in Rochdale, where the family are from. And in the press conference, he said that doctors had found a cyst, a CT scan had identified a cyst on the brain. It's not clear, whether that was a direct result of the incident, but obviously, he went to hospital after the incident, and that's what they found. And he said that his medical condition had worsened. But just to be clear, I mean, it seems like from other videos that the solicitors put out that this man did not go straight to hospital. He went to the police station, and he was sort of pictured at home with the solicitor before the update came later saying that his medical condition had worsened.
And it's interesting because Andy Burnham, who is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, of course, has said that he doesn't want to see people politicise this and suggesting maybe he's seen a bit more footage than we have seen.
Yeah, so what he would have seen is most likely to be sort of the body-worn cameras from the officers. So in his role as mayor, he's also police and crime commissioner. So he will have had a briefing from Greater Manchester Police quite early on, I assume, after this video started going viral. Obviously, there's quite a few videos out there, but the main video that people have seen is relatively short. And, I think whatever the context is, it's really worrying to see anything like that. It's hard to imagine anything that could have happened before that would justify sort of a man being on the floor, doesn't seem to be resisting, being treated like that. However, as Andy Burnham has said, the context might sort of change how people feel about it. It might not necessarily change the outcome. Obviously, that officer has been suspended anyway. So GMP obviously believe that there was grounds to do that.
Joseph, thank you for that. Joseph Timan there, reporter at the Manchester Evening News. Let's bring in Naila Ashraf, who is one of the organisers of the protests which were taking place in Manchester last night. She's also co-chair of the campaign group Greater Manchester Stand Up to Racism. Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, just give us a sense of what the mood was like amongst the protesters out last night.
I think clearly really quite horrified and angry at the video that they had seen. Whatever the context they like to talk about, the fact is that this individual was lying on the ground with his hands along the side, and he was firstly kicked in the face and then stamped on the head. And I think it's really important to say that if that person carrying out those actions wasn't wearing a police uniform, they would have been charged. They would have been arrested on the spot and there would have been an investigation. But that doesn't happen. Instead, what we're having is a whole host of politicians saying, we need to look at the context. Actually, I think there can never be any situation where it's acceptable for someone to behave in that manner, use that level of brutal force on another individual, whether they are members of the public or whether they are in uniform.
Is there a plan for further protests to take place? Just give us a sense of what you're moving towards and what would stop the protests.
I mean, obviously, there is a lot of anger and people were asking about when will the next protest be. And for us, it's very much looking at what will happen today, what will be the response from the authorities. We do want a full apology. We also want to see all of the individuals involved in the incident to be first lose their jobs and then to be investigated and have a legal criminal investigation carried out, because I don't think it's good enough.
To be fair, Naila, you're absolutely right that people would want to see justice done. That would take time, wouldn't it? There would need to be a thorough investigation.
I think it's really interesting. Can I just say, I think that's really interesting. We hear that so often, that it will take time. And it always happens when a police officer is involved, it takes years. But, you know, if that was a member of the public, there would be an immediate arrest. There would be an immediate investigation. I don't think it's acceptable when it comes to police officers that there is a different set of rules for them. I mean, why should it take years to investigate why another individual was first kicked in the face and stomped in the head?
Yeah,
that's the bottom line. No, that was what happened.
Of course, and you're absolutely right. I wasn't suggesting it would take years, but even if it was a member of the public, as you rightly point out, there would be due process, wouldn't there? And there would still be an arrest. There would be a course of, but the investigation is happening now, to be fair to the police.
Yes, I think he should be arrested. He should be sacked and arrested immediately for what he did. He should be arrested for what was on the video. He should go to court. And actually, I think, you know, what happens next will very much depend on the outcome of the various meetings I hear that are taking place today. We were told yesterday that there was going to be a meeting with all the elected representatives in the city and the police today. I want to know what the outcome of that is going to be before we make a decision moving forward.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. I'm grateful to you for your time.
Thank you.
That is Naila Ashraf, who is, she's one of the organisers of those protests in Manchester, also co-chair of the campaign group Greater Manchester Stand Up to Racism. And there is certainly a sense of anger and unhappiness with certain sections of the community in Manchester about what has happened. I mean, it's a really interesting point that she makes there about, she says that she would like to see that police officer sacked and arrested. I guess the point I was trying to make was, even if it was a member of the public and you take out the fact that this was a police officer, there would still need to be an investigation.
Yes.
You wouldn't, there needs to be, you can't just sack somebody immediately. And it's better that you get the right outcome, even if that takes a couple of weeks or maybe a month. I'm not talking years down the track, but it's right that there is due process and there's not almost a knee-jerk reaction and indeed a policing reaction according to what people are saying. There needs to be examined. And as we heard there, from Joseph Timan from the Manchester Evening News, Andy Burnham has clearly seen different video footage. That may not change anything. That may just confirm
not change
what
anything,
happened.
But also, if I were Greater Manchester Police and I were running their communications, I would release that footage as well, the body-worn camera footage, because that will give a greater, not whole, but greater perspective in terms of what went on.